would merely be a tendency towards monotheism. Renunciation of worship does not have to be insult or nihilism. I have experienced much that would prevent possible atheism. Our choices are ours, and Satan is chief of the antagonism. On the ruling class and video porn, okay, I'll comment on that next video. But a Michael W. Ford video I'm going to share some comments on is vampirism and the netherworld in modern Luciferianism. There is certainly the criminal, predatory, and blood-drinking vampires in this world, just as the demons feed psychically upon humans and use them by their permission. So does the psychically feeding off the energy of others require their permission and your faith in it to experience it as if it was a physical reality. Now, if you were to say to yourself that you give such and such permission to visit your dreams and all that sort of stuff, you are feeding them psychically. Those too weak-minded to use even the blood of animals and animal slaughter ritually are not worthy of being other than vegan. Yeah, if you're too cowardly to take part in the process, don't expect to reap the rewards. The demons feed on our physical evil. Our anti-personal animus, self, can open up to them through demonolatry in ways secular crime can't on our own. Necromancy and records of experience do not have to involve treating yourself and the demonic spirits as gods. That's a great truth. There are 7 under the shade of life-changing. Okay. Is that, people think, I get emails from people thinking they have to kill people for Satan to become a Satanist, and there are more direct ways and more effective ways to be Satanist than crime, if that's the path you're going down. Same thing with any other spiritual path. You don't have to jump to being criminal to being of a different path than most people. The just person in authority is probably the rarest of the 7. People who devote their youth or old age to being religious are usually more discouraged than encouraged. Sometimes, more discouraged in it than encouraged. That's definitely the truth. People try to excuse people of the age of accountability because they're young, and that's garbage. Sometimes a mystical realization of the importance of at least the pedagogical importance of a communal house of worship is needed to bring that emotional connection to a masjid, or any other house of worship for that matter. There are people who say that they only love someone for God's sake, but in a mean way. We need to mean it. Just don't, A person seduced has given in. But a person invited to sexual sin by someone who is physically and socially desirable to sin and refuses in it is more common than people think. All need to reject the biblical example of Esther. Because remember the Esther story. A bunch of women are having sex with the king, and the women who primp themselves up and cover themselves in perfume and stuff and head off to the king are more likely to be pleasing. But a bunch of people having sex with a rich guy thinking, he's going to marry one of us, is kind of a ridiculous example. As much as abundant necessity is giving, as much as abundance necessitates giving, it is important to diversify into the private charities. It is easier to have sensual and emotional experiences of worship when it has become part of their private life. Now, it's all well and good to hold off, to head to a place of worship and all that sort of stuff, but it's so much better to make this sort of stuff something you do outside of that. Viewers' questions on demons, money, and the threefold law. I believe this must have been a Black Witch Coven video that I commented on. And this was from the 12th of the... the 12th of the first month of 2017. So... Coriander is one of many spices that seem better fresh. You know, the living plant. I am fine mentioning anyone in my rituals, but I'm not going to let the word slip of rituals on behalf of people that they or their surviving relatives would disapprove of. You know, I was raised in a church. There was this line in the Bible, what shall be done for baptisms of the dead? And just like the Catholics had masses for the dead, and other churches do other things where they have rituals on people's behalfs that have died, or people pay penance or all sorts of stuff. I don't believe in that. I'll say more in my Protesting Protestant Day video. I do believe in doing absentee funerals or rituals as a response to unknown factors. Typical ideas of gods and goddesses are really demons and demonesses. And demonolatry, witchcraft, is acknowledgement of, hey, they really are demons and people are going to be on the side of them. They choose that. I believe that the sensual, emotional, intuitive, and purely spiritual realization of the existence of such entities can be just as valid. The law of threefold return is guilt, shame, and fear. There is not always a good reason for any of that with rituals. Wicca is a watered-down New Age version of witchcraft. As my 4-part series illustrates, I think people should be honest of its real roots. Gerald Gardner actually despised feminists and thought they were ruining the so-called neo-pagan movements. Graveyards have some interesting life going on there. It isn't the dead, but can be familiar spirits who join in the torment of the grave, of those souls who died in sin and disbelief, or the sin of others that put them there. Independent morality and ability to choose should be considered over any ridiculous age-specific laws, whether or not a practice is to be undertaken. Yeah. You have a higher law than the law of the land. That doesn't mean you can't follow the law of the land. Andras is best as the last quinary of Samhain. Samhain, I pronounced that wrong. So many people pronounce that wrong. And can include when people think ignorant of the seasons. Think Imbolc starts. Imbolc actually starts with the closest sunset to 7:27 a.m. Pacific Standard Time of February 3rd in 2017. Yes, a person should choose symbols that will not abrogate your chosen meanings. And from 74, what can I say there? No one has the right to be obeyed in disobedience to God. People certainly choose that, though. The violating sacred times of other faiths to start wars with them is not acceptable in Islam, but common for hypocrites and others. We should never pretend that approval and getting along with members of the Islamic community during the life of the Prophet proves that these people always got along and remained on the way of the Prophet of God. It's important to have not only reminded the people that they shouldn't just merely go out and die, and that there is merit in fleeing to survive when it will not benefit the outcome to stay. And questions? Okay, on the ruling class and video porn.